Hello and welcome back to my Dandelion Diaries. We are on the final color of season 2 ink explorations, and that is red inks. So today I am going to endeavor on swatching 24 different red inks. A lot of these are actually pretty new to me. I'm not a huge red ink person, but courtesy of Sorsha, she's been a huge source of sending me some red inks, and I've had a lot of really good recommendations from you guys as well. Anyways, as for supplies, like normal, I have an A5 sterling ink notebook here. This has the Sanzen Tomoe River paper. I'm going to be using my pipette and my little acrylic stamp block. I have my Sailor Hokoro dip pen today with a Fude nib, t-shirt, jars of water, and then I've been keeping up with my Olive Frogs Designs sample vial holder as well. Everything I'm going to be using today is samples except for the one bottle, which is going to be by Birmingham Pen Company. I wanted to kind of keep it as, variety as possible. And we're just going to go in alphabetical order because that's just how they're set up. And the first one is going to be Akkerman's, and this is Rembrandt's, I think it's Karmozijn, maybe Karmozijn. It's again Dutch, and pronunciation of Dutch is a little bit difficult for me. And this Akkerman ink is gorgeous. It is a nice deep red color. It has a bit of a gem tone to it, almost like a ruby, but not quite as pink as what I think a ruby would truly look like. This ink does have a very minor amount of shading in it as well, but overall it's just a nice deep red color. And I think it's really nice that it doesn't give the appearance of the correction paper red, which is what I truly have issues with when it comes to red ink. Next up, we have the Birmingham Pen Company ink, and this is Fire Hydrant. This is part of their Atomic collection, so you can mix this color with other colors from their line and create other colors on their website. And this red is what I would be considering a correction paper red. It is definitely one of the brighter red colors, a bit more of a true red, if you will, if a little bit more on the yellow leaning side to make it more of an orange red. There's two Birmingham Pen Company red inks that I have full bottles of. It is this one and Ladybug. I was really on a toss-up on which one to include, and ended up going with Fire Hydrant just because I feel like Ladybug is a bit more seen, at least in video, but Ladybug is a bit more of a pink red compared to this one. Fire Hydrant is definitely a bit more of an orange red. So they're just kind of a little bit opposite ends of the spectrum. I wouldn't say either one of them is a true red color. Next up, we have a Colorverse ink, and this is number 8, Mars Curiosity. And I find Mars Curiosity to be a bit more of a true red color. It is slightly cooler, but in writing, I find that it just looks very, very much just red and no other things going on. I don't remember quite, I remember this ink having a sheen, but I don't remember the color of the sheen, so we'll wait for the ink to completely dry to really chat about that. But the flow of this Colorverse ink is pretty standard. There are some Colorverse inks that I find to be a bit dry and some that I find to be a bit wet, and this one's kind of like in the middle, so it's just kind of an average flow, if you will. Next up, we have a DeAtramentis ink, and this is from their Document line, and this is dark red. And since this ink is part of the Document line by DeAtramentis, it is considered a waterproof or water-resistant ink because it uses pigment, aka it's going to have little particles in it that you may have to stir up, kind of like shimmer, but there's no shimmer to this. It's just straight color. The color of dark red is a bit more of I would say a brick red. It's kind of like a burnt red. Is that even a thing? I don't know, but it's definitely a bit darker than your average red, hence the name dark red. But behavior wise, I find this one does a little bit better than the true classic Document red that DeAtramentis offers. Also, I have a swatch of the regular red that I will show at the end when I review the season 1 of swatches I've done, but it's just, this one I find a bit more appealing to me personally because it's not as bright, but it's still red. The regular Document red is a bit brighter and looks a bit true more to like that, Bic red pen that your teacher would have used. Next up, we have the first Diamine ink that I'm going to be swatching, and this is Sailor's Warning. And this is from the Reddit thread, I believe, one of the inks that they decided to make based on the I guess, the poll they did. And the color of this is a bit more of a light red to an orange red. It looks very similar to the Birmingham Pen Company Fire Hydrant, which I find very interesting, but this ink does have a bit of a shimmer to it. I did get this sample from Goulet Pens, and I find that it is kind of lacking in shimmer. But it's okay. I don't want a full bottle of this. I don't use red enough to really get full bottles of too many reds. But this one is a nice lighter red color. It is a bit more of, again, that kind of orangey red, maybe even close to a, I don't know, coral in some areas. I do think that the shimmer in it, being a kind of red color as well, blends in really nicely. There is another Diamine ink I'm going to be swatching, but it's not a shimmer one. If you're looking for a different shimmery Diamine ink, I recently got to try out Diamine Wrath, which is a Cult Pens exclusive, and I thought it was really, really nice too, and it also has red shimmer with a red base. The second Diamine ink that I'm going to swatch is Red Dragon, and this one is just a standard color with no shimmer. And I find this one to be a lovely, deeper red color, much like the Akkerman ink, which I'm kind of surprised with. But to me, Red Dragon has almost a purple red to it. It's got this almost violet undertone thing going on. And this one does have a sheen as well. But again, I'm not 100% sure on the color of that right now, so I'm going to wait to talk about that once the ink dries. I think the flow of Red Dragon is beautiful. It's nice and, I would say, average. It's not going to be just gushing out of your pen, but I do want to say that it may be dry in some pens, because I did try this out in one of my Pilot Metropolitans just to give it a quick try, and it was like, it's okay. But then I put it in my ST, which is the one that I probably have tried the most inks with and love. It's like my favorite pen model at this point, and it did really, really great. So I think it just depends on the pen with this one, but I find the ink to be kind of an averagey flow. Next up, we have a Dominant Industry ink, and this is Christmas Red. And this red to me is very true red. It is beautiful. It's Christmassy. I feel like the name of this just inspires Santa Claus to me. I don't know why. It is a deeper red color, and it does have a reddish toned shimmer in it as well. If I remember correctly, it has a slight sheen that is a greenish color. But again, we'll wait for sheen once inks have dried. The flow of this is really nice. So I find it to be very, very wet. It's kind of like the Dominant Industry Garnet that I have, but the Garnet is much more pink and this one is much more true red. But the shading in it is slight. It has almost a medium to dark base, and it's just really, really, really nice. Next up, we have one of the inks by Endless Alchemy that was released this year, and this is Drops of Mars. And to me, this is another one of those more brick red colors. It's a bit more of like a burnt red or a dusty red, but the saturation in this is beautiful. It is very saturated. I don't want to say that it's just like opaque, because there is slight variant in it, but it is a very nice saturated ink. I think that it's a nice red color, and if you like red a lot, the bottle that this ink would come in is really cool because it looks like an Erlenmeyer flask, but it's just kind of like another red to me, and it's, I mean, that's pretty biased because like I'm not a huge red person when it comes to ink, but it's a really pretty color, and if you like red and you like really cool bottles, I would probably say check this one out because it's a pretty nifty bottle. Next up, we have a Ferris Press ink, and this is Candy Marsala. And I consider Candy Marsala to be more of a brown red. I guess brick red is another great color for that, but this one has a definite brownness to it, especially in the slight shading that it has. Or I should say haloing. It has a little bit of a halo thing going on. It's a really nice ink. I think this is one of Ferris Press's like first inks that they came out with, one of their original batches of inks. So it's a nice legible color for sure. And the shading in it's pretty nice, but it's not just like, oh wow, like it's not like in your face. I would say consistency wise, it is dry, which is pretty consistent with a lot of the Ferris Press inks, but if you have White Lightning or some kind of additive, or you could probably mix in some other wetter Ferris Press inks, you'd probably save it just fine. But it's a nice color. Again, I'm not super just wowed by this one, but it is a nice kind of more brown red if you're looking for something on a different color spectrum. Next up, we have a Kaweco ink, and this is Ruby Red. And Kaweco's Ruby Red is definitely a ruby red color. I've talked a lot about Kaweco inks and my honest, love for them. They are really great price-wise, and they do offer almost every single color, I think, in a cartridge form, which is fantastic if you're a really big fan of cartridges and you need, you know, ease of use. But the only thing is they're very limited in the color range, and I think this is the last color that I have by them. I don't know if I got every single one, but I definitely like this one in terms of the color, because it's not red red. It is definitely a pink red, ruby red, royal red, gemstone red. I could go on. It's really nice, and it does have a very minor amount of shading too, again, from more of like a medium pinky red to a bit more of a deeper red. I really enjoy the Kaweco inks, and I think this would probably be one of my favorites on this page, but we still have 2 more spots, so give me a second. Next up, we have a Kobe ink, and this is number 4's Kitano. I think it's Ijinkan Red. Yeah, I butchered that for sure. And I think this is one of my favorite reds of all time. So I say that with, you know, a little bit of a lightness, because again, I don't use red ink very often, but this color by Kobe is just lovely. Like, I don't know. It has a orange to yellow look to it when it's wet, and then as it dries, it gets more to be a pinky toned color. I don't know, it's just really fun, and like writing with it, especially with a broad nib, it looks really cool because it starts off as one color and then as it dries it changes again. I don't really want to consider it a chroma shade or anything like that, but it definitely has a bit of a property to it that is just unique to the Kobe inks, I feel like. I have been falling more and more in love with this brand the more I use their inks, and honestly think I have a color in every single category at this point and could probably do a rainbow of Kobe, which may be a video coming soon. I don't know. But I'm really, really happy with this ink. Even though I can't pronounce the name, the color of it is just really pretty, and I like the unique red tone that it has, because it's still a bit orange, maybe even a bit green in some areas, and still really firmly red as well. Next up, we have KWZ's Thief's Red. And Thief's Red is actually an ink that I used in my July 30 inks 30 days, and I actually ended up using this ink for the entire month in my astrology journal, and I just have pages and pages and pages of this ink. If you haven't seen any of my videos or heard me talk about KWZ ink before, this brand does have a scent to its inks. It's kind of like a sweet smell, like a vanilla, maybe even I don't know, a toffee smell sometimes. It's just a nice, sweeter smell. If you're sensitive to smells, just keep that in mind with the KWZ brand. Their inks have a scent. The color of Thief's Red, though, is a nice, almost pink red again. I wouldn't say it's too heavy on the pink. It's more to the true red side, but the flow of this ink is just phenomenal. Next up, we have part of the Laban Mythology series, and this is Ares Red. And this is another red that I would consider is a bit more orange in some areas, but it does have a nice shade to a bit of a deeper red color. I like the Laban Mythology series. I think they're really cool, especially if you like the Greek mythology. The bottles from the line has a lot of, you know, traditional Greek art on it, or looks like Greek art. But as for red ink, this one's just like, it's a red ink. I do think the flow is really good, and I like that it is a bit more of an off red, more towards that orange lean, but I'm not wowed by it. It's not just, you know, top of my list or anything. It's just a nice red ink, and it has kind of a nifty bottle if you like Greek artwork. Next up, we have 3 Oysters Chilli Red. And the color of this is definitely a chili red color. If you've ever heard of the California Reaper pepper, that is exactly what this ink reminds me of. I don't know why, because, you know, that pepper is incredibly spicy and it's technically a chili, but I consider it in its own category. But this is definitely a nice chili red color. It's a great name for this ink. Also kind of looks like a cayenne pepper that's been dried just a little bit. Flow-wise, 3 Oysters is very wet. At least this ink in particular, I find to be extremely wet. I haven't had it feather on anything or bleed through the paper, but I do find that it does very, very well in very dry-flowing pens. Again, I'm not a huge red person, so this one doesn't just like speak to me, but it is a great red color with a slight orangeness to it to make it more of that, you know, chili red color. It's nice. I think it'd be really cool if you did like a whole food theme with the 3 Oysters Delicious line, but it's just a nice kind of more orange toned red ink. Next up, we have an ink by Papier Plume, and this is Cherry Red. And this is like I took the jar of maraschino cherries out of my fridge, dipped my pen in the cherry juice, and wrote with it. That's what this reminds me of. Naming is really good for this, especially if you like maraschino cherries. I do think that this ink is slightly dry, not so much so that it causes any problems per se, but it just has a bit of a dryness to it that, you know, you may want to add a little bit of white lightning or some other kind of additive to make the flow a little bit wetter if that's more your style. I do think that the shading in this is pretty nice. It's not overwhelming or anything. It's just kind of like a nice lighter red to a little bit more of a medium red. I do consider this to be more of a light red ink in general, but it is a really pretty color. I don't really know base-wise if this could be truly red. I think it has almost a coralness to it. It reminds me a lot of Lamy Red as well. If you can't get a hold of the papery plume, maybe try the Lamy Red and see how you feel out. It's nice. It's okay. I like some of the other inks by Papery Plume better. Next up, we have a Pennonia ink, and this is number 20, and I'm totally going to butcher the name of this, but I believe it's Ordogi Voros. And this ink is a nice kind of medium red color as well. I wouldn't consider it's just crazy. It's kind of a warmer red. It has a bit of an orangey yellow look to it, but it's just kind of like another red ink. Pennonia as a brand is pretty extensive. Their color range is just out of this world. Kind of, I wouldn't say to the level of like Diamine or Robert Oster, but they have a lot of different colors out there. And this one is a really good one if you like a nice standard red color that's slightly warmer. I do think that the shading in this is pretty okay. It's not crazy like some of the other Pennonia inks I've swatched out, but it's nice. If you like the Pennonia brand and you want a red ink by them, I think this is a good choice, but I'm not, you know, overwhelmed with the color of this one. Next up, we have a PenBBS ink, and this is number 114, and I believe it's Zhang Ailing. And this one is a nice true red color. I think in terms of flow, this ink is really nice, pretty average, but what really sells this ink for me is that it actually is almost a true red. I know comparing a bunch of reds like this on pages and pages together is a little bit difficult to see how similar they are, but also how different they are. But this one is actually probably the truest red color out of all of them in the fact that it is like red on the color wheel scale. Yeah, I don't really know how else to describe it other than this one is truly a red color. It doesn't really lean warm. It doesn't really lean cool. There's not really super outstanding undertones to me. It's just a nice true red color. Yeah, just really nice. I do find that PenBBS inks are getting harder and harder to find, so if you are able to find any, please drop it down in the comments because my source that I was getting them from, Vanessa, no longer carries them, and some of these inks are pretty well loved. So if you know where to get some more of these inks, definitely drop that down in the comments. Next up, we have Pelikan's 4001 Brilliant Red. And much like the Papier Plume's Cherry Red, this is a bit more of a washed out lighter red color. It's actually really close to the Birmingham Pen Company's Fire Hydrant, but a bit more washed out, a bit more unsaturated, if you will. It's a nice red. I find the flow of this to be pretty dry, honestly, which I think is pretty common with a lot of the Pelikan inks. And I recently figured that out because the pens are really juicy. So I think they have dry inks for their wet pens, so it just kind of evens out or something. I don't know. Color of Brilliant Red, though, is again that washed out red, almost more towards an orange side, especially compared to the Cherry Red right above it. It's definitely a bit more of the true red, but Brilliant Red has a bit more of an orangeness to it, even more of a coraliness to it, if you will. Next up, we have one of my personal favorites that I have been tempted to get a full bottle of, and this is Robert Oster's Blood Moon. And I think I love this one the most because it's not really truly bright red. This is definitely a dark bloody red color. I think that the base of this could be even considered a red black in some instances, but I just really, I don't know, there's something about this ink that just like speaks to me. It looks kind of like a bruise or like dried blood. I don't know. It's creepy and good at the same time. I don't know what that says about me. Anyways, the flow of this ink is also really phenomenal. It's very wet. It's very lovely. I love putting this into my Travelers Company pen because it's brass, and there's something about the kind of like metallic, brassy, aged look with like this older, dark red, black color. I don't know. There's something about it that just pulls to me, but I love the color of this ink. I probably will end up getting a full bottle of it at some point, but it's just a really nice dark red black that is unique. I don't know. I love it. Next up, we have a Sailor ink, and this is Ink Studios number 730 or 730. And I feel like this color is a bit more of a cross between the Pelikan Brilliant Red and the Papery Plume's Cherry Red. So kind of in the middle, but leaning more towards the Brilliant Red side. I honestly consider this color to be neon red. That's the color I'm going with. I do think the flow of this ink is phenomenal though. Really common with a lot of the Sailor Ink Studio inks that they have just really great behavior, and this one's no exception. It does have a bit of a sheen to it as well, which I'll talk a bit more again, you know, once the ink completely dries. But color wise, this is definitely what I would be considering a neon red color. Next up, we have a Taccia ink, and this is Taka, I believe. And this is another red that I would be considering kind of close to a true red color. But the Taccia brand itself is just luxury. I don't know. There's something about their inks that have this, you know, satiny, velvety feel to them when you write or when you draw with them or paint with them. I don't know what it is about the consistency or viscosity of these inks, but they just have this, I don't know, quality feel to them when you write. I really like this one. I was really tempted to do Taccia's Benetsushi for this category instead of the Taka, but I feel like Benetsushi is almost too orange in some instances to put in this category, so I went with the Taka. But if you haven't seen Taccia's Benetsushi, it is a gorgeous red-orange with a bit of a brick red shade. Next up, we have a Van Dieman ink, and this is Lion's Roar from their Feline series. And I love this ink. I have been obsessed lately with the Van Dieman brand. I have been trying to get more and more samples by them. And this one I was so happy with when I picked it up because the color is almost like a bloody red color, but it has golden shimmer and it's just, I don't know, there's something about it that's just beautiful. Also, the flow of this ink is juicy. She is wet, she is flowing, she is just all around fantastic. I think this ink would look great without the shimmer and with the shimmer if you wanted to use it either way. I really like this red. I think I like it too because it's a bit more of a darker red color and it's not super, you know, again, correction paper from my grade school teachers. But the shimmer in this with the darker red bloody base is just really beautiful and I really like it. Next we have a Wearingeul ink, and this is from their Peter Pan line that they released this year, and this is Captain Hook. And this red has another kind of purpliness to it, similar to that of the Diamine Red Dragon, but this one is much more red looking. Shading wise, I find that Captain Hook has almost a medium to dark red shade in like stub nib writing, but it's not really showing up in anything other than that I've tried it with. Color, beautiful, darker red. I vibe with this one too. Still like Lion's Roar a little bit better, but the color of this one is still really beautiful. And it's nice, deeper red kind of shade. I think the purple undertone does make it match the Red Dragon, but it could also look really close to the Akkerman's, again, I'm going to butcher this one, Rembrandt's Karmozijn one up there in the corner. And we are going to end off with another Wearingeul ink, and this one is Queen of Hearts, which is from their Alice in Wonderland series. And this one is like Robert Oster's Blood Moon in that it is a deeper, almost red-black in some areas, but it's slightly more purple and it has this golden shimmer to it as well. Almost makes me feel like if Robert Oster's Blood Moon and Van Dieman's Lion's Roar had a baby together and this would be the result. I don't know. But the Queen of Hearts flow is beautiful. I find that of the two Wearingeul inks I just watched, the Captain Hook and the Queen of Hearts flow is much better. But the color is definitely, again, bloody dark red. So kind of take that with you will. If you're not a big fan of super dark red colors, I'd probably pick Captain Hook over this one, although Wearingeul has a lot of really great red colors, and if I had, you know, infinite space on the pages, I would just show you all of the reds in my collection. But we're going to end on this one, and I think it's a good one to end on because it is another ink that I really enjoy because it is a darker red color that doesn't scream, you know, teacher correction paper to me. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and let these finish drying. I'll be back probably in about 15-20 minutes to see where we're at, and we'll do some close-ups and review kind of what these look like up close, like I said. And then I will also review season 1 of the red inks that I did, which I remember I did a really fun video for that. But anyways, I'll see you guys in a second with some close-ups in season 1. Okay, I am back. Everything is mostly dry, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. We'll talk about what the properties I'm seeing are, and then I will compare to season 1 at the end. So we started off with Akkerman's Rembrandt's Karmozijn. Again, I'm probably butchering the name of that one, but this is a lovely darker red color. It does lean a bit more towards the blue or purple side, and it has a very minor kind of greenish black sheen. I think this ink is really great. It's a nice dark red color, and it gives really good wintry red vibes. Then we had Birmingham Pen Company's Fire Hydrant. This is much more washed out compared to the Akkerman, and it is more of a orangey red color. I do think that this is a really nice ink for mixing because it is part of their Atomic line, and that the other red that they have is more of a pinky red color compared to this one, but the redness of it isn't super red. It's definitely more of an orangey red, maybe even a corally red. It reminds me a lot of the Lamy Red, which is a bit more washed out. Then we have Colorverse's Mars Curiosity. The sheen didn't come through as strong as I wanted, but it is almost like a green black or a dark green color. Looks really, really cool in writing, I will say, because the sheen just kind of pops out here and there. I do think this ink is pretty nice. It's a nice solid red in terms of leaning orange to blue or yellow to blue. I think it's more firmly in the middle, maybe slightly on the orange side, but it is a good medium color compared to like dark, light, medium. Then we have DeAtramentis Document Dark Red, which I forgot to write document on here, but this is part of the document series, so it is a waterproof or water resistant ink. I do prefer this over the classic Document Red by DeAtramentis just because the color is, I don't know, a bit more me, I guess, but it is darker, more of a brick red color, and has a slight orangeness to it, but not so much so that it looks red orange like the Fire Hydrant up here. It's definitely a bit more red looking, but there is a slight orange undertone. Then we had Sailor's Warning by Diamine. This is part of their Reddit group selections. I lost words for a second there. The shimmer is almost like a pinky red color, and the base of it is a nice lighter red, maybe even more of a red orange again. I think with the shimmer, it makes it look more like a true red color, but the base of it is definitely more like the Fire Hydrant up here by Birmingham Pen Company. Then we have the second Diamine ink I swatched, which is Red Dragon. The camera's not really pulling through the purple tones that it has, but it does have a purple undertone, and the sheen is again more of like that greenish black color. I do like this one as a standard Diamine red ink, and again, I prefer the darker reds like this over like the brighter reds, just for me personally, but the color is unique in that it has a bit of a purpleness to it, which you don't really see too often in red inks. Then we had Dominant Industries Christmas Red. Love the vibes on this one. It definitely reminds me of Christmas. The red is a standard kind of true red color. The shimmer is kind of silvery gold. It kind of, maybe champagne is a good word for that. And it does have a green sheen, so it's nice and Christmassy. Reminds me a lot of Diamine's Spiced Apple, although the sheen on Spiced Apple is much stronger and much more green than this one. Then we had Endless Alchemy's Drops of Mars, a nice more brick red color, again, kind of like the Akkerman up here, or even the Red Dragon, but this one is a bit more of a true red, and the sheen is again that kind of greenish black. Consistency wise, this is nice, and if you like the brick red color and you want a fun bottle, I think this would be a good selection. Then we had Ferris Press's Candy Marsala, which is definitely more of a brown red, a brick red, but definitely kind of, yeah, definitely more brown than brick red, I feel like. The shading in this is really nice. It has some good haloing going on, and you can see the kind of base color being that dustier red to more of a brown red. This ink is a bit dry for me personally, so I don't really reach for it that often, but you could always add something like white lining or whatever to make it a bit better. Then we had Kaweco's Ruby Red, which is definitely more of a ruby red color in that it is a bit more pink. I think the colors that Kaweco offers are limited, but the flow and quality of the ink is really great for the price. and that they offer them in cartridges is fantastic. I like this one. I don't reach for it very often, but it is a really good pinky red color. Then we have probably my favorite red, maybe on both pages, I don't know. If it's like a really red color, this is the one that I would want to reach for all the time, and this is Kobe's number 4, and I'm gonna butcher the name. It's Kitano, I think it's Ijinkan Red. It is beautiful. It has an orange to true red kind of shade or color change, and then it has this bright green sheen, which I don't know if I can get the camera to really showcase that, but it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I love the quality of the Kobe inks. I talked about it when I did the wet swatch. I've been obsessed, and I think I have a color from every single family now, and I may end up doing like a rainbow of Kobe or something, but I really love this ink. Then we had KWZ's Thief's Red, really great red ink. I used this for the whole month of July this year and really enjoyed it. The red sheen that it has is more of like just a darker red, so you have a red base with a slighter red sheen. Color wise, it is a bit more on the, I would say, blue side, a cool tone blue. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's true red, it's close, but it definitely has a bit of a blue undertone. Then we had Laban's Mythology Ares Red. I like this one. It's a great red in that it's more of like a orangey red with some really cool shading, I guess. I don't really think it has that great of shading, but the sheen on it is more of like a black red. It's nice. It's okay. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's a really great red ink if you like red inks. Then we have 3 Oysters Chilli Red. This still reminds me of the California Red Reaper. I don't know why, maybe because it's called Chili Red, but it does have a bit of a red sheen as well. And flow wise, it is pretty juicy. It's pretty wet. Then we had Papery Plume's Cherry Red. I really think this looks like maraschino cherry juice if you wanted to dip your pen in it and write with it on a page. May look a little washed out compared to a lot of the other reds, but it is a nice kind of lighter red color. Again, kind of reminds me of Lami's red, but this one is a bit more pink looking compared to that one, which is a bit more orange looking, like this Pelikan one down here. Then we had Pennonia's number 20. I think it's Ordogi Voros. Really nice red. Shading is pretty good in terms of like medium to dark. It has a reddish black sheen, much like these two up here, but it is also a bit more on the orange toned side. As you can see, these two, this one's more orangey, this one's more blue, this one's more orangey again. So it's a little bit different in shade, but they're all very close together. Then we had PenBBS's 114, Zhang Ailing. I feel like this is the most true red out of all of the reds on the page. It has a nice kind of greenish black sheen to it, but the shading is not really substantial. It's just a nice kind of good saturated red color. Then we had Pelikan's Brilliant Red. This is very much like Lamy Red to me. It's more orangey. It's bright, not quite neon like one of the other ones I'm going to talk about, but it is a brighter red. I think if you mix these two together, you would get a truer red color, but this is definitely a bit more orange, and this one's definitely a bit more pink, and this one's a bit more true red. Then we had one of my absolute favorites, between the Kobe and this one, I think this is what I would get a bottle of. This is Robert Oster's Blood Moon. I love that it looks, I mean, this is gross, but like dried blood. It looks very gory to me. It's really cool. And I like that it's an off black color too. I find that when I want a black color, I don't really reach for black. I go for an off color. And this is a good one for me because it is a bit more of like that reddish brown, slightly purple undertone. It's just lovely. And the flow on this is just chef's kiss. Then we have the one I would consider to be neon red. This is Sailor Ink Studios 730. You can see that golden sheen that it's got going on, and it's very close to Pelikan's Brilliant Red, but it's much more saturated is probably a good word for that. Really nice flow, very well behaved. I think the Sailor Ink Studio line is great, and they have 1,020,000 colors. Then we have Taccia Taka. You can see again gold sheen here. So this is more like an orange red. This is more of like a true red. If you wanted to get a brighter red that's about the same kind of saturation level with the same sheen, I guess. But the flow and the feel of the Taccia inks is just luxury. I just love the way these inks feel. Then we have Van Diemen's Lion's Roar. obsessed. I love. It's so pretty. The base color is definitely a brighter, or I should say a deeper bright red color. And then the golden shimmer with the greenish sheen is lovely. I kind of want to compare this to Diamine's Spiced Apple, which we'll do with the season 1 here in a second. But it's really, really pretty, and I really have been loving the Van Diemen's inks lately. Then we had Wearingeul's Captain Hook. You can kind of see a little bit of the greenish black sheen that it's got going on, but in shading, this actually goes from like this teeny tiny little bit of lighter red you can see here to the deeper red. It's really nice. I find that it only really shows up in like stub writing, but the flow of this is pretty good, but the flow of Queen of Hearts, also by Wearingeul, is better. And like I was saying, it's like if Blood Moon and Lion's Roar had a baby, this would be the result, and I am still standing by that. It's still slightly wet here in the corner, but it has a greenish sheen, golden green shimmer, and this deeper, like bloody red color as the base. Absolutely lovely. Okay, now let's go ahead and review season 1. So this was, I think, the first video I did, and this was for Halloween because I remember I made a whole like bloody ink video. It was so much fun. So we have Monteverde's Valentine Red, Wearingeul Dracula, another one of my absolute favorites. The Sailor Shikiori Yodaki is lovely. The base of this is beautiful with the bright green sheen. Wearingeul's Human Issue, though, I think is one of my all-time favorite reds because it literally looks like blood, like wet blood, writing with wet blood, if you will. Robert Oster's Astorkizorat, I can never say that, is another really good one as well. I think in comparison, if you wanted to see like what some of these look like side by side, I don't really have that many dark reds on the page here. I think Blood Moon is kind of close to Writer's Blood, but Writer's Blood is definitely a slightly different. I feel like Writer's Blood is a bit more purple and much darker, I would say. Yeah. And then this is the other red one that I did. So we have Noodler's Red up here, which has a little bit of shimmer that just smeared on it. Pilot Red, which is a great standard, like true red color to me. Diamine Spiced Apple, which I want to compare to a couple others in a second here. Ferris Algonquin Maple is a bit more of like a dustier red. Sailor Shikiori Irori is great, and then the DeAtramentis Classic Document Red is right here. So if you wanted to compare the Classic Document Red to the Dark Red is a bit more of like that bricky red color. I do prefer this one to the Classic Red, but if you wanted something that's truly just like red and waterproof, Document Red is a great choice. If we wanted to compare the Spiced Apple... yeah, it doesn't even compare. Okay, so Spiced Apple is right here. And this one is definitely, yeah, Lion's Roar is much more orange compared to the Spiced Apple, and the shimmer is gold. The Spiced Apple shimmer is green to gold. So the chameleon of the Spiced Apple is really nifty. I think price-wise, I'd have to look, but I don't know. I really like Lion's Roar, and I really like Spiced Apple. The sheen on the Spiced Apple is much stronger, being a green sheen, though. Okay, that is it for red inks. I will be doing a flip through of this book soon, and then I'll probably do a flip through of the season 2 color families that we did. I'm still going to be doing ink swatching videos. I've decided to finish the year out with either like brands, because I know that was another really highly requested thing, so I'll probably do a couple of brand videos. And then I also want to do the 2 ink vents that are coming in December, so quite a lot of ink videos in the future. And then next year I'll probably delve into the more I guess like in between colors, like yellow green, red orange, blurple, whatever. Anyways, I just wanted to say that these aren't going to be over. I really enjoy making these videos so much, and I have plenty of ink still to play with, so we will be continuing on with season 3 of ink explorations, probably starting in 2025 though, because I still have a few videos that I want to do for the rest of this year. Anyways, if you have any questions about any of these inks today, please let me know down in the comments. If you have some favorites, definitely put those down there too. I love to see what you guys are adding to your wish lists, what you're on the hunt for, or if you need any comparisons, I can see what I can look up into my collection as well. Anyways, I hope you have a great day. I hope you enjoyed some ink swatching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.